First of all, let me say that this announcement is really great news for the UK. You have just heard it, but the CMA has given us the green light to create a new force in UK telecoms, and this new force will drive more competition and more investment. For us, we are committing to an £11 billion investment program that will give the UK the biggest, the best network. This will benefit consumers and businesses up and down the country and will finally give the UK the digital infrastructure that it truly deserves. Today is a milestone moment in the process. It comes at the end of 18 months of intense reviews and thorough scrutiny by the CMA. We are now moving to the final phase, which is next 12 weeks for going through the final legal elements of the process with the CMA and our partners, and we expect full completion in the first half of 2025.
Margherita, can I just ask a few more specifics about this deal? One of the conditions the CMA set out is you building out, in the combined entity, building out this new 5G infrastructure in the UK. You've previously said as part of this deal that you'd invest £11 billion into the telecommunications infrastructure in the UK. Can you just give us an idea how you're planning to pay for this?
The whole rationale for the deal was to drive scale that would unlock capital investment. We have said from the outset that in terms of funding, this combination and this investment plan would create no necessity for public funding and, most importantly, no necessity for additional cost for our customers. The logic of the deal, the rationale of the deal is to gain network scale, and through scale, we get the efficiencies and the returns that allow us to build this best network.
In terms of the capital requirements, this, of course, is a capital-intensive project. Where do you expect that to come from? I know one of the things you've been doing recently is selling stakes in some of the businesses. You have Vantage and Indus Towers, for example, or two. Is that a path you're going to continue to pursue?
Let me be really clear on this point, because I said last year when I became CEO that 3 markets in Europe for Vodafone needed intervention precisely because of the need for scale to drive growth. We are now effectively reaching the final steps of this reshaping of Vodafone in Europe. We have, as you know, completed the sale of Spain. We are in the final weeks for the sale of Italy, and we are now doubling down in our home market, the UK. From a balance sheet perspective, we have also reshaped the group balance sheet with a target leverage which is very healthy, and therefore we don't have any need as such except just move forward with our organic strategy.
Margherita, I'm just going to cut to the chase here because when you think about how consumers are digesting the news this morning, many people will be thinking whether they will face higher bills going forward. Can you address those concerns?
Yes, I mean, very simply put, the UK is one of the most competitive mobile markets. There are tens of retail brands competing for customers. None of that is going to change. What is going to change is that these brands will now be able to rely on much better infrastructure as we move the UK for, let's face it, a position of laggard in terms of digital infrastructure, even within Europe, to actually a leadership position with a best-in-class 5G network. As I mentioned earlier, the whole rationale of the deal was get the scale to invest. That doesn't require us to change in any way our pricing strategies because of the merger.
Margherita, I want to ask a little bit about growth. You mentioned there's something very interesting. There are lots of smaller players, these MVNOs, who are offering very competitive deals. And the industry at one point thought 5G was its savior. And what we're seeing now is the price of these tariffs for consumers are extremely competitive. And actually, the telcos are struggling to really make money off of 5G. So in your view, what is it that's going to reignite growth at Vodafone?
infrastructure scale is of the essence in a high capital intensive business as telecoms. Over the years, too much fragmentation has been driven in the infrastructure of our businesses. We are today the most capital intensive industry in Europe, with, at the other extreme, the lowest return as a result of years of fragmentation. But once again, as for Vodafone, we have taken this matter in our own hands, and with the reshaped Europe, we will operate in markets which are all growth markets from a telecom industry more broadly, and where we will have the scale to drive returns on our investments and growth.
Margherita, I would like to get your thoughts more broadly on the sector. I would like to understand whether the process that, well, you've just started to some extent, whether do you hope to serve as some sort of inspiration for more consolidation for telecoms across the European continent?
It's a very good question. I think that the decision of the CMA sets potentially a strong precedent for what we have just been discussing and the need for scale. You have heard the CMA this morning making a clear link, and a very important link, between more investment and more competition. And this is the essential link that needs to be understood across Europe in terms of shaping the rules of the future. I think we have seen some early steps in this direction where, for example, the Draghi report on European competitiveness was advocating the need for more investment in infrastructure, more investment in telecoms. It's really important that we sort of step back from some old-fashioned views of the world and think that actually investment drives competition, because as the UK will see, there will be more competition on investment itself amongst the player, better quality therefore for the customers, and with investment comes capacity that is in itself favorable to retail competition. So a healthy dynamic to shift Europe away from the current position.
Well, we'll see what policymakers might do on that front as well. But in the meantime, we appreciate your time this morning off the back of these breaking news. That was Margherita Della Valle, CEO of Vodafone, and of course, our very own Arjun Kripal.